Before we start this video, a large thank you to Bernard and Ilian for their support on Patreon. I hope you guys enjoy the video. And as always, an immense thank you to Halo Burner and Humberto for their continued and immense support to the channel this month on Patreon. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Okay, hello everybody. We're going to continue right where we left off. Let's finish up this break object logic. So in this video, we're basically going to conclude this, and then we're going to revisit something I forgot to do in our scene manager. We're not actually unloading the scenes when we join someone else. So this causes the scenes to be loaded 2 times, but we'll get to that at the end of the video. So let's call it toggle mesh renders and set this to false. Let's also make one for toggle mesh colliders. I didn't do this in Nephilim, but this is a chance for me to optimize my own code. It's basically going to do the exact same thing. We're just going to use a for loop and toggle everything, but having it in its own function like this makes it a little bit neater. Let's call false on that, and then let's right below that, let's do one final check to make sure that the audio source isn't null. If it is null, it's simply returned. Otherwise, we're going to simply play a sound effect. So if audio source is null, return. And then we're just going to use our world sound effect manager here and basically pick a random sound effect from an array. And the array we have on the script already, I believe it's called break sounds. So we're going to say audio source dot play one shot. We're going to then call upon our world sound effect manager singleton, and then we're going to call upon the function for choose random sound effects from array, and the array we choose to pass is broken sound effects. Okay, cool, very good. Now on network position changed and on rotation changed is pretty straightforward. Obviously you're just going to set the transform dot position of this object to the new position on the network, which is the new position variable in here. Alternatively, you could say network position dot value. Also down here on network rotation change, so I'm just going to say transform.rotation is equal to the new rotation. I call that new position. I'm going to quickly change that name because it's going to bug me if I don't. New rotation. Okay, very good. So toggle mesh renders and toggle mesh colliders, these are going to be identical functions except for the array they call. So we're just going to say for each mesh renders.length, and then we're going to say if mesh renders I is equal null, simply continue. It should never be, but just in case if it happens to get deleted somehow in your game. Then we're going to say mesh renders I dot enabled is equal to status or status, however you want to say it. Now do the exact same thing for toggle mesh colliders, but we're going to iterate through our mesh colliders. And this just makes it so when you are breaking the object, you're not colliding with the breakable layer anymore. You're colliding with nothing basically, but we have to keep the game object active, so network data can go back and forth on the network. Okay, now up here we're going to simply go to our on is broken changed flag here and do a check. We're going to say if is broken dot value and is not broken locally already, we're going to call the break effects. So if it is broken locally, you won't get this call twice. Then we're going to say if is not broken dot value and the instantiated broken object is not equal null, delete it. So this will be for if you're restoring a breakable object to its original state, it goes back to being not broken. Now on the break object server RPC, all we want to do is say if is server is broken dot value is equal to true. That's it. Okay, I'm going to save that, just looking over here, make sure I didn't miss anything. There's quite a lot here. All right, I'm going to save, and now I am going to jump into the game here, and we're going to save these as prefabs. Now, I actually discovered something new recently, we're going to talk about it in the future, but depending on how you set up your game, you might not even need to enter the addition of the spawner. Because of this, I'm going to make the spawner logic in its own separate video, so those of you who want to skip it can. And let's talk about this basically. So we have right now a breakable object. I'm just going to reset the transforms, and the broken object that it spawns when it's contacted with. The spawner was originally meant to spawn the actual breakable, and I'll tell you why that can be useful in the future and why you might not want it. So let's drag in our broken sound effect, and I also forgot to make the prefab variable serializable. Gonna need to do that, or else we can't actually instantiate the broken version of the object when you contact it. But do that, then drag your broken prefab into your breakable crate. Make sure you add a rigid body and a collider to all of the breakable portions inside your crate. I'm going to add the rigid body, and then I'm just going to add a mesh collider, but I'm going to make it, what's that setting called again? Let's see, mesh collider. Right, convex. So this just simplifies the collider a bunch, and it's good for saving memory. All right, gonna save that. And now if I go into the scene here, you can see I can actually hit the crate with my sword and it breaks. Very cool. However, if I try to roll into it, let me just pause and reset this up again. I'll be right back. If I roll into it, as you can see, I can't break it. And if I jump on it right now, it does this. So you want to add your breakables to your ground layer. Otherwise, you'll float on them endlessly like that. So wherever you got your ground layers, mine's in the player locomotion manager. You could make a universal layer setup on the world utility manager and get it from there, but just make sure you add breakable object and broken object. Okay, cool. So we want to be able to roll through this crate and have it break. We can't do that right now. This is because we have no way of telling when the player is rolling. And I'm going to make a network flag for it across all characters because you might want to know when other characters are rolling in the future for some other reason. I used this a few times in Nephilim, so that's why I'm choosing to make it a network variable here instead of a regular variable. But if you want to make it a regular variable, you can probably get away with it. So I'm going to put this under, I swear we thought we had a flags header here. Wait, I think it's on the character network manager maybe. Anyway, let's go. I've added it to the player network manager for now. I'm definitely going to move that to the character network manager. Let's go to the player locomotion manager here, and where it says attempt to perform a dodge, just do a check for if you are the owner, and then simply change this to true. I don't think you need to check for if you're the owner because I believe this is only called if you are the owner, but just to be safe right here because I can't remember 100%, I probably should check it, but for now we're just going to check if we're the owner and set is rolling to true. Alright, now I am going to go to the animator window, go to reset action flag, and if we are the owner, I'm going to reset is rolling to false, or here if character is owner. Yes, I have to move to the character network manager anyway, unless I want to do a cast for the player here because it does not exist on the character network manager. So we're going to put it here because we were going to drop it there anyway. And we're going to say is equal to false. It's going to throw us an error until we move it. Let's go move this from the player network manager to the character network manager. And you could rename this if you want to is dodging instead of rolling if you want to give characters a generic dodge. Rolling is just a dodge for our player. Entirely up to you. There we go. We can save that. Cool. Alright, now if I go back to breakable objects, we had a pseudocode line here somewhere that said to do add breaking, so we can have unbreakable object. Let's go down to on trigger enter, and it says check for rolling and jumping to do add rolling. So we can just say or, and we can say player.player network manager rolling, or is rolling.value. Now that should work, but let's test it just to make sure. Save. If I go into the game here now and I roll this crate, boom. Yeah, that's very satisfying. Way more satisfying to roll into it than swing at it and break with the sword. All right, very cool. That's awesome. Now, I'm going to test this. I have my client here connected, and yes, the crate is broken on their end as well, so the multiplayer aspect is working. Haven't tested that in a while, so just thought I'd hop on and make sure nothing was broken. Now, right here, let's make the server RPC require ownership equal to false, otherwise it will be an issue when your client breaks an object. So, in-scene network objects, and this is why you might want to not consider making a spawner. If you place any scene or any network object in a scene with a network object component on it, basically it will spawn for you when that scene is loaded. And I thought this didn't work for additive scenes. Maybe it didn't back in the day, or maybe I'm misremembering, but basically you can drop a bunch of your crates in all of your additive scenes and they will spawn. And yes, I did just test this. They will spawn if they're in there originally or not in there originally. So you can just kind of populate the scene right now with crates or your breakables, whatever you want to do. However, this means that when the scene unloads and reloads, if your crate was broken, it will not be broken anymore. So that is something to consider and why you might want to use a spawner. But if you don't care about that, you can go ahead and delete this spawning prefab if you want to. Don't worry though, I'm going to cover that in another video where if you want to make it work with a spawn system, we can do that. Okay, right now if you join someone's game, you actually load all the scenes without unloading your scenes, causing them to load twice. So on network despawn on the world scene manager, let's call start coroutine unload all additive scenes non-network. This doesn't exist yet, but we're going to make it. Why non-network? Well, this basically just means we're not using the network manager to unload our scenes because the network is disabled in between the point where you're joining a game and you've just ended your game. So we wouldn't be able to use that. So we're going to make a private enumerator right down below unload additive scenes coroutine. We're going to call this unload all additive scenes non-network. And we're basically going to do the exact same thing, but we're going to not use the network scene manager to unload these scenes. We're simply going to unload them with the regular scene manager. And basically you need to do this, otherwise when you end a game and join someone else's game, the scene manager on their end, the network scene manager, will try to sync the scenes with you by causing all of their scenes to load, but also all of your original scenes are still loaded. So we're going to say for each loaded scene.count, if loaded scene's eyes equal null, continue. If loaded scene is not valid, continue. And then we're going to say var loading operation is equal to scene manager dot unload scene async, and we're going to pass loaded scenes one, or I rather, dot name. Then we're going to simply say yield return null. And then we're going to say right below that, while there is a loading operation happening, or rather while it has not complete, and we can do that by saying while loading operation does not equal null, and while the loading operation is not done, yield return null, and then outside of the for loop, just yield return null, and we're good. So this works. Unfortunately though, if you have the misfortune of having the wrong version of netcode installed, you might pull your hair out thinking what's going on. I'm going to show you. I'm going to join my other client on my computer here now by first starting the port off at 666, then join the game, stop the host, and try to join their port at 777. Now, watch what happens. So if I hit start client right here, you're going to see this error message. And this doesn't point you to anywhere in the code base. It points you to an issue in Unity's netcode package. Now, basically deduced that the problem is actually this function right here when we unload the scenes. I couldn't exactly tell you why, but I discovered this back in Nephilim, and this exists on netcode version 2.2. I'm not sure about any other ones. Now, I have like 1.5 or something, or 1.14, I can't remember, 1.14 maybe in Nephilim, and it works, but I see that 2.5 is out now, and I was told by an engineer that it is now fixed. So we're going to install 2.5, and yes, it is indeed fixed. Now, disclaimer, I have no experience with 2.5 yet. I might install it in Nephilim, but I'm here right now in the Elden Ring project, and it is working as intended. So there you go, guys. Now you have breakables in your game, and if you do want to see the breakable object spawner and despawner by area sooner rather than later, let me know in the comments. I will cover it regardless, but if not, I'm going to move on to things that other people had requested. So in short, right now, your breakable objects will work, but the problem is when you reload the scenes, they'll come back as if they were not broken. You don't necessarily have to make a spawner for this. You could give every breakable object their own ID, and upon spawning, you can compare that ID with something in a world object manager, like a dictionary, and if that ID says it's already broken, then you can just break it as it spawns. This would kind of go around the idea of making a spawner. You wouldn't really need to do so at all. I only made a spawner originally because it seemed to me that at the time, maybe it was my mistake, or maybe it has changed since, I could not add network objects as in network scene objects to additive scenes. But knowing that I can do that now, I would do things a little bit differently. Anyway, that is enough rambling for me. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. I hope you have a very amazing weekend. And I want to give a shout out and thank you to everybody who takes the time to like these videos, comment, and share them around. And I want to give a special shout out to my patrons. Because of all of you, it is genuinely why the series can continue and why I post any content at all. So you have my sincerest gratitude. I will see you guys next week.